Stop. Whatever you are carrying in this moment, stop for a breath and listen to me. What I am about to say is not for everyone hearing it. It is for you. You have been feeling a pressure that nobody around you can name, and that is part of why it has been so heavy. You keep moving through your day while something inside you keeps asking for attention, and you have been pretending that question is small enough to ignore. You have felt the weight of that silence in ordinary places. In the middle of a room full of people, you still feel alone. In conversations that used to feel warm, you now feel a strange distance. In the quiet after midnight, your mind keeps returning to the same ache, the same unfinished sense that something in your life is being asked to change. And I need you to hear this clearly. By the time we close, you are going to recognize the signs that have been showing up around you. You are going to understand the pattern underneath them, and you are going to hear a declaration spoken over your life that does not come from pressure, fear, or imagination. Stay with me, because this is not a vague encouragement. This is a precise message for the moment you are in. You did not come here by accident. This message reached you because something in you is already awake enough to recognize it. There are moments when heaven does not shout. It arranges. It places a word in your path at the exact hour your spirit is ready to receive it, and that is why this found you tonight. What you are hearing is not random comfort. It is confirmation. It is the kind of word that arrives when a door has already begun to move, even before you have the language to call it a door. You are not being entertained. You are being addressed. Something has been happening to you, and you have been trying to explain it with natural words, but the explanation keeps falling short because what is shifting in you is deeper than mood, deeper than routine, deeper than the surface of your schedule. It shows up in small places first, and then it repeats until you can no longer pretend not to notice. You wake at the same hour again and again, as if some inner bell keeps sounding before dawn. You tell yourself it is only stress, only habit, only a body that will not settle, but there is a pattern in it. Attention. You need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment. There is a pattern in it that has nothing to do with random sleep. That waking is an invitation. It is the hour your spirit is least covered by noise. You have also felt emotional waves that seem to come from nowhere. One moment you are steady, and the next you feel the sudden sadness of a room that is not even yours. You may have blamed yourself for being too sensitive, too tired, too open, but what you call instability is often calibration. Something in you is no longer willing to remain numb. You sit in conversations that once felt normal, and now they feel thin. The words are still there, but the life inside them is missing. You listen politely, you answer kindly, yet a part of you keeps stepping back as if it has already outgrown the room. That distance is not coldness, it is alignment. And then there are the signs that arrive without permission, numbers that repeat, a phrase you hear in one place and then again in another, a song, a line, a timing, a coincidence that is too exact to feel like coincidence for long. You do not need to force meaning onto every detail, but you also do not need to dismiss what keeps returning. Repetition is one of the oldest ways heaven gets your attention. These things are not problems to be solved. They are confirmations to be received. The waking hour says your inner life is no longer sleeping through what matters. The sudden emotion says your heart is no longer sealed shut. The hollow conversation says your spirit is no longer satisfied with what used to be enough. The repeated sign says you are being followed by a mercy that does not forget your name. So do not panic when you notice these things. Do not call them confusion just because they are unfamiliar. What you are sensing is not collapse. It is calibration. What feels unsettling is often the first evidence that your life is being tuned to a truer frequency than the one you have been living under. Take a breath with me. Let that settle before you answer anything. Let it sink into the part of you that has been waiting for permission to call this what it is. If even one of those signs just landed in you, if your shoulders dropped while I was speaking, type the number 888 in the comments. That is not a magic formula. It is the frequency of overflow, the sign that you are no longer only surviving what used to drain you. Type 888, then come back to me, and now stay with me, because there is something beneath these signs that matters even more than the signs themselves. Beneath those repeated wake-ups, beneath the sudden emotion, beneath the hollow conversations and the returning numbers, there is one pattern. You have been living as if you must earn your place in what is already being prepared for you. You keep reaching, you keep proving, you keep carrying more than is yours because somewhere along the line you learned that need must be hidden and readiness must be demonstrated, so you make yourself useful, available, responsible, strong. You become the one who can be counted on. You become the one who does not ask too much. You become the one who keeps going, even when your inner life is asking for rest. That pattern can look like faithfulness, but often it is fear wearing a noble face. It can look like discipline, but often it is an old survival posture that never learned how to sit down. It can look like maturity, but sometimes it is only the refusal to believe that grace can meet you before performance does. This is why certain doors have felt close and yet strangely closed. This is why you have sometimes stood in front of opportunities, relationships and assignments with all the right effort and still felt something unresponsive inside the moment. It was not because you were lazy. It was not because you were disqualified. It was because you were applying the right hunger to the wrong method. You were reaching with hands that had learned to grip when what you actually needed was openness. You were trying to control what could only be received. You were trying to force a harvest from the same posture that kept you braced for lack. And every time you did that, the ache inside you grew quieter, not because it was gone, but because it had learned not to interrupt. I need you to see how tender this is. You were not being difficult. You were being trained by repetition. You were not stubborn for no reason. You were adapting to an environment that taught you to stay alert, stay useful, stay self-contained. That is why the pattern feels so familiar. It has been your armor for so long that it now feels like identity. But armor is heavy when the storm has passed, and there is a cost to staying there. You begin to measure your worth by how much you can carry without being seen. You begin to confuse exhaustion with devotion. You begin to assume that if something is truly meant for you, you will have to strain to hold it. Over time, the soul grows tired of proving what it never needed to prove. This is why the inner pressure has grown louder, not to punish you, to reveal the cost of the pattern before the pattern costs you more. What you have been calling pressure is often mercy interrupting a cycle that would otherwise keep repeating itself under a different name. And here is what almost nobody understands. The pattern was not planted yesterday. It has roots. Imagine a courtyard that has been waiting beneath a locked gate for years. You have lived as though you were standing outside that gate, asking whether you would ever be allowed in. But the strange thing is that the gate was never the truth of the place. It was only the memory of a closed season. Inside, the courtyard has always been there. The stone is still there. The air is still there. The waiting light is still there. You inherited the posture of a person who was told, directly or indirectly, to stay small at the gate, told to wait until invited, even when the invitation had already been spoken, told to hold back your voice until it could be proven useful, told to mistrust ease because survival had taught the previous generation that only strain was safe. So you learned the gate, you learned the hesitation, you learned the careful knock. You learned to stand outside what was already yours. That is why the metaphor matters. The issue is not that the courtyard is empty. The issue is that you have been behaving like someone who does not belong inside it. The life that is waiting for you is not beyond the wall. It is behind a threshold you have been afraid to call yours. For a long time, you have been living at the edge of your own inheritance, as if the truest part of your life were always one more effort away. But the deeper truth is that the inner gate has already begun to open. You may not see the whole courtyard yet, but you are no longer outside it in the same way. You are hearing the latch, you are sensing the space, you are feeling the air change. And the reason this feels so intense is that a door opening after a long silence can feel like grief before it feels like peace. You do not only lose the old confinement, you also lose the familiar shape of the life you built around it. That is a sacred loss. It means something real is making room. Stay with me, because the image is not ending here. It is turning. The courtyard is not only a place, it is a memory returning to its rightful owner. The gate that looked like rejection is beginning to look like access. The wall that looked final is beginning to look temporary. The silence that sounded like abandonment is beginning to sound like waiting. Something in you has been dimmed, not destroyed. Something in you has been quiet, not absent. Something in you has stood still long enough to survive a season that required restraint, but it was never meant to remain buried forever. You were not born to live only at the edge of the gate. If the image of that courtyard just sealed something inside you, if you can feel the difference between standing outside and standing near the threshold, type the words, "I see it," in the comments. Let that recognition settle where it belongs. Type it, then come back to me. And now move with me into the return, because what comes next is not effort, it is restoration. The solution is not to build a new self from scratch. The solution is to return to the place in you that never agreed to live under permanent strain. You do not need to become more impressive. You do not need to become more guarded. You do not need to become more available to what keeps draining you. You need to come back into the courtyard as one who belongs there. That means the first thing you receive is permission to stop negotiating with what has already shown you its limits. Some doors close because they were never your door. Some obligations exhaust you because they were never your assignment. Some relationships stay hollow because you keep offering your true self to places that only know how to recognize your usefulness. The return begins when you let those things be what they are without trying to sanctify them. You are not being asked to force openness. You are being asked to allow it. There is a difference. Forcing says you must produce the peace. Allowing says the peace is already waiting for you behind the fear. Forcing says you must prove your readiness. Allowing says your readiness is revealed when you stop gripping so tightly. One simple practice is what I call the morning seal. Before you reach for your phone, before you answer the first demand of the day, place one hand on your chest and say quietly, "I do not belong to strain. I belong to what is true." Let that sentence be the first gate you walk through, not because words create reality by force, but because they remind your inner life which room it is entering. Another practice is what I call the threshold pause. When you feel yourself about to say yes out of fear, pause long enough to ask whether you are choosing from peace or from pressure. Do not make the pause a performance. Make it a return. Sometimes the holiest thing you can do is wait one more breath before agreeing to what was never yours to carry. This is not about becoming passive. It is about becoming faithful to the place in you that can tell the difference between responsibility and compulsion. Stewardship is not obsession. Stewardship knows when to tend, when to release, and when to stand still without apology. You have been overtending what should have been entrusted back to God. You have been undertending your own soul, and that is changing now. Not because you have mastered anything, but because you are finally being met in honesty. The courtyard does not ask you to pretend the gate never existed. It asks you to step through it with less fear than before. That is enough. That is holy. That is how return begins. You may still feel the old reflex to prove, to chase, to brace. Let it come and go without naming it as your identity. You are not the reflex. You are the one who notices it. You are not the strain. You are the one being released from it. You are not the ache. You are the one learning how to live beyond the edge of it. If this message confirmed what your spirit already knew, let your like be your amen without words, not as a metric, as an agreement that what was named here was named correctly. Take a breath with me again. Let the recognition settle. Let it be enough for a moment. Someone came to mind while I was speaking, and that is not by chance. It may be someone quietly tired, someone secretly seeking, someone who keeps holding a strong posture while carrying pain nobody else notices. It may be someone who has been smiling through strain, someone who has been loyal beyond what is healthy, someone who has been waiting for a word that does not flatter them but actually finds them. Send this to them, not as a recommendation, as a delivery. The same way it was delivered to you by appointment. Before this closes, type the words "I am chosen" in the comments. Not as a wish, not as a performance, as a confirmation. The agreement forming between heaven and your hearing across these minutes is one you are meant to live from, not just remember. Type it slowly. Let your fingers do what your spirit is already doing. You are confirmed. You are being released from strain. You are being brought back to the threshold that was always yours. You are not arriving late. You are not forgotten. You are not outside the courtyard anymore. Right now, all across the world, others are receiving this same recognition in their own quiet way. Some are hearing it in the middle of ordinary rooms, some while sitting in silence, some while trying to explain why their heart has been restless for weeks. You are not alone in what is awakening. You are part of a movement that does not need to announce itself to be real. It is sealed. You are not being asked to perform another miracle. You are being asked to stand still long enough to notice that the miracle has already begun to move through your ordinary life. What changes now is not the size of your calling. What changes now is the weight you no longer carry as if it were proof of your worth. The moment you stop confusing heaviness with holiness, the soul begins to breathe differently. The courtyard does not demand that you arrive with noise. It receives you in truth. So let the next breath be simpler than the last. Let the next decision be quieter. Let the next yes come from peace and not from fear. You have spent enough years translating pressure into purpose. You do not need to do that anymore. The old language is fading, and a truer one is beginning to speak through you. There are still places where your heart flinches when it remembers what it had to become. There are still moments when the body braces before the mind can explain why. That is not failure. That is memory. And memory can soften when it is no longer forced to become destiny. You are allowed to outgrow the reflex without betraying the season that formed it. This is how the return continues, not by demanding that you feel perfect, but by refusing to worship what hurt you just because it once kept you alive. You are permitted to lay down the old posture without asking it for permission to leave. You are permitted to become softer without becoming weaker. You are permitted to belong to peace without proving that you deserve it. And if some part of you still wonders whether it is too late, I need you to hear this carefully. It is not too late to hear what was always speaking. It is not too late to receive what was already moving toward you. It is not too late to step into the courtyard and discover that the floor is still held, the air is still open, and the light still knows your face. The gate that frightened you does not have the final word. The long waiting does not have the final word. The ache that taught you to keep watch does not have the final word. What has the final word is the hand that opens what was never truly closed, the mercy that remembers your name, the love that does not confuse delay with denial. You may feel that there were years when nothing answered, but silence was not absence. Silence was often the space where your deepest attachments were being exposed, where your hidden bargains were losing their power, where your spirit was being taught to stop bowing to every closed door as if it were a verdict. A closed door is not always a rejection. Sometimes it is a rescue from a room too small for what is coming. This is why your life has felt so sensitive lately. You are no longer able to tolerate what once passed for normal. You are no longer able to ignore the tension between the person you were taught to be and the person you keep sensing underneath. That tension is not the enemy. It is the evidence that your inner life is refusing to stay divided. When the courtyard begins to open in a person, they do not only gain peace, they lose false agreements. They lose the need to keep performing gratitude for what depletes them. They lose the compulsion to call everything fate. They lose the fear that rest will make them invisible. And yes, that loss can feel like grief for a while, because even freedom asks us to mourn what it took to survive without it. But you are not losing yourself. You are meeting yourself without the old armor. You are not becoming less serious. You are becoming less burdened by the idea that seriousness means struggle. You are not drifting away from your purpose. You are finally letting purpose find you without the noise that used to surround it. Stay close to this truth. The courtyard is not waiting for your perfection. It is waiting for your return. It has been waiting through all the years you spent learning how to stay outside and call that patience. It has been waiting through all the nights you convinced yourself that if you just tried harder, the gate would open. It has been waiting because waiting is what love does when it knows the door is already meant for you. And now, in this part of the journey, the waiting changes. It changes from ache to awareness. It changes from effort to presence. It changes from asking, "Will I ever be allowed in?" to listening, "What was I always invited to receive?" That change is not small. It is the turning of the whole inner world. So do not underestimate what is happening in you when you choose gentleness over grip. Do not underestimate what is happening when you stop explaining away the signs. Do not underestimate what is happening when you admit that your soul has been tired of being treated like a machine that can produce more by being given less. You are not being reduced. You are being restored. You are not being delayed. You are being aligned. You are not being left behind. You are being brought into a place where your life no longer has to argue for its own legitimacy. And here is the deepest layer of all. The courtyard was never only about getting somewhere. It was about remembering who you are when you are no longer standing guard at a gate that was never yours to police. It was about learning that the open space inside you is not empty. It is holy. It is ready. It is inhabited by a peace that does not need a performance to survive. I want you to imagine, just for a moment, that you have been carrying a key in your pocket for so long that you forgot it was there. You kept searching for access, kept checking every lock, kept wondering whether you had the right to enter, while the very thing you needed was already close to your hand. That is how near this return has been all along. Not distant, not withheld, near. Some of you have been waiting for an earthquake, but what is coming is a door. Some of you have been expecting a dramatic sign, but what is arriving is a steady recognition. Some of you have been looking for proof in the loudest places, but the truest proof has been the quiet persistence of this message, finding you exactly where you are. So let your next hour be marked by less strain. Let your next conversation be marked by more truth. Let your next pause be marked by trust. You do not need to rush the unfolding to know it is real. Real things remain real even when they move softly. There are people who will not understand the shift happening in you because they are still loyal to the old version of your life. Do not make their confusion your compass. You are not required to stay understandable to remain faithful. You are only required to stay honest, and honesty in this season will often sound like peace. That peace may look smaller than you expected at first. It may not arrive with thunder. It may arrive as clarity in the morning, as less resentment in your chest, as the surprising willingness to say no without apologizing for existing, as the quiet relief of no longer carrying conversations that were never mutual. Do not dismiss those small mercies. They are the first stones of a new path. And if you are wondering whether this new path can really hold you, the answer is yes. Not because you have become invincible, but because you are finally becoming transparent enough for grace to move through your life without so much resistance. What used to cling to you will begin to loosen. What used to confuse you will begin to simplify. What used to feel far away will begin to feel near enough to touch. I do not say this to stir you up. I say it because I have watched how the quietest turns become the most enduring ones. A person changes most deeply when they stop fighting the shape of the invitation and start trusting the one who placed it there. So receive this last part with care. You are not late to the life meant for you. You are arriving in the right way, at the right depth, at the right hour. The courtyard does not measure you by how long you stood outside. It recognizes you by the way your heart responds when the gate finally opens, and it is opening. Slowly, yes. Steadily, yes, but truly. Breathe once more, and let that be enough for tonight. The sign was real, the pattern was named, the route was seen. The return has already begun, and you do not need to manufacture what is already being given. Walk gently now, hold loosely what must be released. Keep your heart open to the quiet ways mercy keeps meeting you. The path is not closed, the door is not dead, the light has not moved away. You are entering a season where peace becomes familiar. You are entering a season where clarity speaks more often than fear. You are entering a season where you no longer mistake survival for identity. You are entering a season where the soul remembers how to rest without apology. And even if the world around you remains loud, even if old pressures try to call you back, even if familiar shadows attempt to rename your next step, you will know what is true. You will know that the gate was never the end. You will know that the courtyard was always waiting. You will know that what was sealed in fear can now be opened in trust. Let the rest of this night be quiet. Let the next morning be simpler. Let the next choice be truer. You do not need to force the life that is already coming toward you. You only need to meet it without turning away. And when you do, you will understand why this message found you at this exact hour. It did not come to entertain your mind. It came to steady your spirit. It came to remind you that the opening is real, the return is real, and the peace beneath your feet is not an illusion. So I leave this with you as a final witness. The old weight is not your name. The old gate is not your limit. The old silence is not your sentence. What is unfolding now is gentler, deeper, and far more lasting than the pressure you have known. You are ready for what opens next. You are held as you cross. You are seen in the light. You are not outside anymore. Right now, even in places you cannot see, others are feeling this same quiet turning in their own lives. Some are reading the signs, some are laying down the weight, some are standing at the threshold and realizing they were never abandoned. You are one of them, and you are not alone in this movement of return. It is sealed. Attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. a guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuzazara readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment.